Hello and welcome to the PowerFish podcast. I'm Fish.
And I'm Ben. Today, you're going to hear us solve the meaning of life, determine if animals have morals, and debate if we actually have free will. Let's get into it.
Here's an interesting one to start with here. If I can remember where I had it. Here we go. Does a person's name influence the person they become?
Well, at the extremes, 100%.
How so?
Although if it's the difference between Derek and Donald, maybe not. If you're named Jerkoff, I think that's gonna have a pretty big impact on maybe in a vacuum you would be the same person, but what it will change is how people how people interact with you, which over the course of a lifetime will change you.
That's fair.
But like I said, if it's the difference between John and Josh, honestly, I would say no.
Probably not that different. See, like you and I are pretty good examples of this. I think you have not like a basic ass name, but you have a fairly common name.
Yeah, Ben. Yeah.
I have a fairly uncommon name.
Well, I would say it's a fairly uncommon first name.
Yeah, no, that's
but a fairly common last name. Yeah,
right. So I would wonder. I don't know. I don't have any way to examine this properly, but I would really wonder what differences were made as opposed. Other than the obvious differences that we grew up in different households. But if there was any sort of difference behaviorally with other people and access to whatever or what have you, I don't know.
We had just like a name swap.
Yeah, if it would have been different or not, I think that'd be really interesting.
Well, my parents named me a biblical name.
Because you're a Bible lover.
I can't remember what its meaning was biblically, or who Ben even was biblically.
I remember.
Shows you how much it means to me.
There was a guy I recall somewhat, but not really.
Yeah, like I said, if we were both of us, even if we swap names, I think we would be pretty much the same people we are today. But like I said, if our names were like a little bit weirder,
yeah,
it could have profound effects on how our life trajectory would go, I think.
Yeah, I think I've seen I've met people with silly names, and like it's almost without thinking you kind of make a judgment about it.
Yeah. Like if an employer looks at applications and sees a guy with a name that he can't pronounce, he might just dismiss that.
We know employers definitely don't use very good criteria for selecting applicants.
Right. And that would be a life altering trajectory change.
Right.
So I think in a non-philosophical kind of divine sense, it has the ability to change who you are, but I don't think in the sense that your personality will be from its core inherently different because you're named differently. I don't think that has anything to do with anything.
I agree. Fair.
All right, we're moving on. Next philosophical question. Is the mind the same as the brain, or do we have souls? Okay. Now that doesn't seem like a very coherent question. So it's asking two things here and assuming that they're the same. Is the mind the same as the brain? I've always classified mind as just another word for your brain.
Right. I think most people would say that.
And then it says, or do we have souls? As if souls have correlation to mind or brain. Um,
I mean, you and I had a very, very in-depth episode about the concept of a soul.
yeah, and consciousness and whatnot. And
Right.
I am of the idea that a soul does not exist and consciousness is a thing that all of us have but is not unique from one person to the next.
So you're in the camp of clean slate but moldable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone is given consciousness and the entire effect of their outcome, whether it comes, when it comes to personality and whatnot, is purely genetic entirely. I don't think consciousness has anything to do with who you are or who you become. I
And
think
so
it's just an ability that we all have.
my assumption is you would probably say that yes, that consciousness is the same thing as the mind. Would that be accurate?
Well, it is clear that consciousness is part of the brain and comes from the brain. It is a brain thing. Like
Yeah.
when people there's injuries, there is brain injuries that severely hinders people's ability to be conscious.
Right.
So like it's clear that consciousness it's in our cranium.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's something that's probably produced by our own brains. There are some people that think that our brains are a receiver of consciousness and the consciousness is coming from something else, whether that be aliens or something divine or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, if our brains get messed up, our consciousness sometimes gets messed up with it.
Mm.
So it is clearly a brain thing. But I mean, yeah, I don't think souls are a thing.
Yeah. No, that's fair. What?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about it, and we had this big argument. If I'm being honest, I don't remember. I don't remember where my stance was. If that was long
Your
ago.
stance was consciousness is akin to a soul. It is unique to each individual. If you remove an individual's consciousness and put them into a new body, they will still be the same person.
Right, because
Type of thing.
Because where I was coming from was in this hypothetical situation, we are transporting also the past and memories. We are transporting not only just the blank slate that is the soul or whatever or what have you consciousness, but also all associated memories and past.
Which now I discredited your idea of that. Which, granted, neither one of us have any idea if each of us are right or what it even is. No one does. But there has been, as I've learned recently, there has been instances of kids, like under the age of like 7 or 8, kids recalling detailed memories with verifiable details of a past life. That is on record having happened before.
That's fascinating.
Yes, that is deeply fascinating. So, which that would imply the idea of a reincarnation, which requires whether it's a soul or a consciousness to continue on after death. So, I don't think that that's obviously I can't explain this thing of kids apparently having memories of before they were born with details that they shouldn't know.
Right. Yeah,
But
I don't know what to make of that. That's interesting.
I can't explain that. I still don't think it's the idea of reincarnation or a consciousness or soul, continuing on after death, but it's sure pretty cool. Whatever that may be.
So,
are you still of the idea that consciousness and soul are like akin to each other? Like it's an essence of you?
So my idea, at least then, and maybe now, I'm not sure how. I haven't put much thought into it, but My idea of a soul is very much not something tangible. I mean, it isn't for anybody.
Right.
But I think it's just another word for the same exact concept. It's just what is the makeup of your experience or your identity. And
Right.
which all that is the amalgamation of your experiences. So, I mean, that is something very brain chemistry oriented. And now I might say that makes up the consciousness of a person. And if that were to be transferred to something else, it would retain it. But I mean, that's just speculation. I don't think it's something in religious nature.
No, me neither. I agree with that. I don't think it's divine in nature, but like I said, I don't think that we have any non-tangible thing that makes us ourselves. I think consciousness is just this ability of spatial awareness and our ability to perceive ourselves in time and space that all of us have, and it's the same for everyone. And who we are is simply our genetic makeup and life and experiences. But like I said, neither one of us are ever going to have, maybe not ever, but at least right now, we and everyone else have no idea which one of those, or neither, is the true case of consciousness.
Right.
But
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. What the hell was the original question? I feel like
something stupid.
we didn't go down that road.
No, the question was, is the mind the same as the brain?
Yes.
Which, yes, in the typical sense of English that most people use it as, yes. And then it moves on to, or do we have souls? Which is a totally separate thing.
Yeah,
I think.
You can't or that.
You can't or that. So I think that's a silly, stupid question, but I think whatever it's asking, we probably got to in that quick tangent.
I think what we did was to the two-part question that was yes, and then the other one was I don't know.
Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah. So moving on. Next question.
I did phone a friend for this next one of my buddies. I just said, hey, give me a deep philosophical question.
Okay.
And
what is his question?
His question was essentially the paradox of the ship of Theseus. Which, are you familiar with the ship of Theseus?
Of course.
I think maybe I've talked about this maybe on this podcast, but the idea that if you replace a single board at a ship, one board at a time, until the ship is made up of all new parts, is it the same ship, the ship of Theseus? What says you?
Right. And to my answer, when you talked about this on the podcast last time, which it was an early episode, it was probably 25 episodes ago, but my answer was no. It obviously is not the same ship. It is. There is nothing of that ship remaining from what it was. So it's not the same.
But what is it? What is a thing? Let's get deep. Let's get, and by deep I mean abstract. What is
let's stop making sense here. Let's
what is a thing, right? Is a thing so the ship of Theseus, right? The ship of Theseus. Does it serve the same function? Does it
The ship is the makeup of its parts. What makes a ship is, specifically the ship of Theseus, is wooden planks built in a structural fashion that allows it to sail on water. That is the ship. That is what makes it a ship. If you remove all those planks and replace all those planks one at a time, it's still a ship, but all the planks that made it what the ship of Theseus, none of those planks, none of its makeup is still there. None of it. Even though it might look the same, act the same, function the same, none of its makeup is there.
Gotcha.
So that's why I say no.
What if we rose the Titanic from the bottom of the ocean, and we you know how ships are. We just nailed a couple of boards to it, and it floats again magically.
Yeah,
because obviously that's exactly how it would happen.
Some wooden planks. Yeah,
just fix the holes. And if you know anything about the Titanic, it motherfucker split in half.
Sew it back together. You know.
Yeah. So okay, all right, and then it floats again. Is that the Titanic?
Yeah, it's repaired. It's still most of its parts.
Where is the line of repaired versus replaced?
Replaced is removal and addition. Repaired is addition.
I think that, yeah, but the idea of the ship of Theseus is that it's something that's done over time. How many individual repairs on separate occasions does it take for something to no longer be the same thing?
So, if you take the Titanic and over 10 million years you use it, and over these 10 million years, something of every single part on that ship breaks and it is repaired.
Yeah.
Or replaced. We'll say that. If like a side panel falls off, you put it back on. If the plumbing pipes break, you replace them.
Yeah.
Let's say over the 10 million years that this thing has sailed, each individual part on that ship has needed to been replaced.
Yeah.
It's still going to be called the Titanic.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right.
Is it the same ship as 10 million years prior? In every sense of our intents and purposes and how we're going to describe it and refer to it? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it literally the same? No.
I mean, it's the idea, and I think I brought up this same exact argument the last time we talked about this, but it's the idea of your skin regenerates cells once every, couple of months or whatever. Yeah. And it's still your skin, but it is not the same skin it once was.
Right.
Same thing with any body tissue, to my knowledge. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more to do with how we feel about objects more than what is the object itself.
Yeah. So exactly. So to bring our Titanic analogy back to the ship of Theseus, the reason I said no, it's not still the ship of Theseus, is because literally, I'm speaking in a literal sense. It is not the same thing as what it once was in every part. But for us, our intents and purposes and what we're going to call it and use it and refer to it as, it's still the ship of Theseus.
Gotcha. So our immediate reaction differences came down to literal versus figurative. I think figuratively the same versus literally the same. Interesting. Yeah. I find that interesting.
And if you disagree, I think you're wrong. Anybody listening.
That's only valid, really.
Yeah. All right. So this next one gets into some pretty relevant current events. Can computers think or fall in love? And I think we went into this podcast topic idea with the idea that some of these questions were going to be stupid and we're probably going to make fun of them. This one I don't think is philosophical. I think this is a scientific question that can be answered. But we'll answer it anyway, or at least try to.
We're pretty smart.
111 IQ, baby.
I got him.
So can computers think or fall in love? Think! I mean, by way of think, if you mean Not no. In the sense that we can think, no. I don't think. So they're not conscious. The computers to this point don't have the ability to identify their position in time and space like we do. But does that mean they can't think? If someone has brain damage and they are no longer conscious, they can still think. Animals and bugs can think, even though they may or may not be conscious.
I think a lot of answers that have given and am going to give for these things, it follows up with another question, which is, how do we define X word? What is thinking?
Because if it is simply defined by the ability to process information and in turn come to conclusions, yeah, a computer can think.
Right. I mean, isn't that is what thinking is?
That is what thinking is. But if we say that, then computers have been able to think.
I mean, we know, talking from a formal stance, the basic building blocks of what an argument is. That is the same structure that a computer uses to compute. If this and this, then this.
So if we're separating the ability to think from consciousness, which I think should be separated because they are different, yeah, I think computers can think. I guess.
But they're not conscious.
But they're certainly not conscious yet, even though we're getting ever closer to that.
Right. And
then it continued with, or fall in love. That's easy. No, computers can't fall in love
yet.
Also, also a yet with that one.
Right.
The AI chatbots might want you to think otherwise, but next question.
Here's one. Can animals have morals?
Well,
what is morality?
Yeah, let's get this cheese stick and pull a string a little bit off of that. Let's peel this back a little bit. So, morality as defined by humans is not even consistent from culture to culture.
Right.
Like, people a very long time ago thought it was, in every sense of the word, immoral to eat a certain type of animal. In other cultures, it is not, in every sense of the word, immoral to sacrifice another human being for some greater purpose, or whatever purpose, that culture deems worthy.
Right.
So, like, even within humans, morality is not a consistent idea. So if we were to apply it to animals, we would have to assume that these animals built up their own idea of morality based on their quote unquote culture.
Right. No, I think that's the only correct answer is morality is defined by a culture and animals have their own culture.
Right. So if animals do have an idea of morality, it would be most likely so foreign to us that we wouldn't be able to recognize it as such.
Right. I mean, you can, if you were to go to a zoo or go out into the wild, you can see certain kinds of animals interact with their own kind, and discover ideas of sharing or collaboration. So you'd almost, maybe it's a leap in logic, but I'd almost think, let's say I witness a monkey sharing food with another monkey, right? And I would extrapolate from that. Monkeys have in them the idea of sharing goods and kindness amongst themselves, because that's obviously a thing.
Yeah, monkeys being kind or rude or all of these recognizable human traits is a thing, absolutely. But are they doing that because it is a benefit to all of their survival and like living conditions?
Isn't that exactly why humans do it? Because being a part of a defined culture and a defined society that helps each other, is better for survival.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's why we do it. We do things out of kindness and moral reasons for when we know full well that it is going to have absolutely zero bearing on us or our survivability. In fact, sometimes we put ourselves in like a state of detriment to enact these moral doings sometimes.
I would push back on that a little bit, because I think where I was going with that is the basic fundamentals of society. I think you band together and you do what's good for the group because you have safety in numbers and you share resources and things of that nature. I think that is a basic building block of society. That's why people gather. I mean, there's also the idea of loneliness, but that's another thing. I think the reason that in a modern society, maybe people they are selfless, and even though it's not a matter of survival, it's a matter of kindness. I think that is a product of those. You think
that is a product of our more primal human nature,
right? We know in ourselves, because of evolution, that banding together and doing what's best for the common good is ultimately better for us in some way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think I agree with that. So then that then begs the question, our kindness and selflessness has nothing to do with morality. So then should it with monkeys?
Probably not. What is morality? I would say this. Morality is defined by a culture or society, and culture and society is defined by survival, or what a group thinks is best for survival. So really, when you boil it down, and I like boiling things down, I forgot where my mind was going with that. I was at the precipice of that idea.
So really, when you boil it down, there's nothing there. It's all gone.
Really, when you boil it down, morality is just survival.
But it isn't, though. Yeah, but that's not what morality is. Yeah.
No. See, what I did was I extrapolated something to where it shouldn't be extrapolated. I think morality is defined by a culture. That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Full stop. That's the end of that thought. Next thought is culture arises from survival.
Yes. Cultures congregate due to survival in ancient times because of survival reasons.
Right. I mean, I still think that's true. I mean, why do we have? What?
People aren't joining some of the cults that they're joining because they think it's for survivability.
I'm talking like people still congregate because it's
the innate human desire, or because of human nature, is what you're saying.
Essentially,
Because it's in our
yeah.
past.
And I
because
mean,
of
like,
evolution.
right. And that, and also we have social support in place for a reason, that because that's a part of society. And I still think people utilize those things because people know inherently that a society should be trying to achieve what's best for the common good and help the ones that cannot help themselves, as is society.
Right.
Hey, that was supposed to be about animals.
Yeah, which keeps pulling away. It keeps spreading further apart the difference between morality and kindness and congregation.
Right.
I think we both agree on the fact that probably kindness and selflessness, at least to a degree, comes from our evolutionary nature, which would remove it from morality.
Right.
But what we haven't really been getting into is, if that, okay, then where's morality? Then where does that come in? What is an act of morality?
I think in regards to animals, I think what we've concluded is that, and I think we've already said it, but I'm going to say it again. In the case of animals, it doesn't come down to morality. It comes down to common survival.
Right. It comes down to evolutionary nature.
Evolutionary nature and the survival of small cultures within the animal kingdom.
So, in answer to the original question, do animals have morality? I think we've come to probably not.
Probably not, and that's not a helpful way to ask that question.
Yeah, that question doesn't really get to the bottom of anything, really.
Yeah. We
did
it.
All right. Yeah. We conclusive. Moving on. Next question. Oh, shoot. Well, we might not need to linger on this one for a while. What is consciousness?
Hey, check out the episode.
Yeah, check out the episode where we had probably like a 45-minute argument on this. Quick update to the stances. We even just before this recording, we kind of went through this again. But just a quick update. My view of consciousness is it is not akin to a soul. It has nothing to do with you or you as a being. It is simply your ability to identify yourself in time and space, and everybody has that same ability. And it has nothing to do with your personality, your name, none of that. I think that is my current stance on consciousness, on what it is.
And I would say that I probably feel very similarly. However, I do lump the idea of past experiences and past what makes a person over time. I lump that into what the idea of consciousness is. So I think it's just a different way to classify it, but ultimately coming to a very similar conclusion.
Right. So yeah, we if you want a more detailed argument with examples and yelling, go watch like episode 8 or 9, whatever it was.
Something like that. It'll be somewhere.
We'll pin it up there. Next question.
Yeah. It'll be pinned up there, and if not, go find it.
Right.
I couldn't even tell you what that episode was called.
Why are you alive?
Why are you alive? Right. Because we also dug into not only what is consciousness, but what does it mean? Well, I guess that is what consciousness is, but what it is to be alive and what it is to be a separate individual from others.
Yeah.
And we kind of dug into quite a bit, I would say.
We went into that one.
I, for the life of me, cannot find a good question.
I'm just going down my list.
Well, some of these are fucking stupid is the problem. And I mean, I could tell you some stupid ones, but who does that helpful to?
Nobody.
Yeah. And analyze are science questions. Who wants to talk about stupid
Yeah. A
science?
lot of them are science questions. And I would say this is probably one of them. I'll just go down my list. Next on my list is, by the way, when we say our lists, we mean a quick Google search of philosophical questions.
Yeah, no, this is not a curated list.
No, we did not curate this. So next on my list is they're assuming somebody asked this, and I can assure you no one asked. Can we really know what it feels like to be a bat?
I would say no.
No.
Because we are not a bat, and therefore we can't know what it's like to be a bat.
Yeah, moving on. What is it? Okay. When you have a toothache, is the pain in your mouth or in your brain? Okay, also not a philosophical question. This is a scientific question. The pain is
It's in your brain, but it
is from pain receptors.
Yeah.
that are shooting the information of there is a problem in your mouth it's shooting that information to your brain, and your brain is saying pain, which is supposed to be the indicator of get that fixed. So it's your brain.
Exactly.
Do you have a question?
This is a very broad one, but it's interesting, I guess. So when somebody says, like, if they were to pull you aside on the street and they would grab you by the shirt and they would say, I need to talk to you. I need to ask you a deep philosophical question. You could probably guess what they're about to ask you. And they're about to ask you this very question. Is there a meaning to life? Or what is the meaning of life? Well, actually, that is a two-part question. Is there a meaning to life, first of all? And if so, what is it?
Well, of my view, if you want to be real literal about it, our meaning of life, because of evolution, is to reproduce. That is the meaning of life. But if you ask me, what is the meaning of life? I mean, for me, that's a silly answer. That's a bit too literal of an answer, even though it might be objectively true.
Certainly biologically true.
Biologically true, evolutionarily true. Yeah, that is why we exist, is to continue to exist, to make.
I think in order to talk about the meaning of life, we need to talk about motives and what drives a human being in general. For some people, that's creativity. For some people, it's reproduction. For some people,
it's the act of reproduction without reproduction.
For some people, it's practicing reproduction with condoms. But I think when you really get down to it,
this is such a crazily subjective thing.
It's crazily subjective. Like, I'm trying to think, like, what is the meaning of my life? And the answer to that is, the fuck? I don't know. Who the fuck?
Who knows?
If I had to take a guess at it, I would say I derive a lot of purpose feeling from creative type projects. Or at least the idea of them. Maybe I don't act on them all the time, but the idea of something creative. So if I were to really try to strive to go after my meaning of life, it would be to dive into something deeply creative. Maybe.
I would say my meaning of life is to I guess find as many meanings of life as I can, because I know that honestly right now for the past few years now, what gives me purpose feeling is the discovery of new information. But I'm also conscious enough to know that I'm 23 years old, and that's probably not going to stay consistent for the rest of my life. And for you, being creative also may not stay consistent for the rest of your life, but it might be your number one thing right now.
Right.
So like, I think the meaning of life is to just keep finding more meaning. Keep the meaning fresh, I guess.
That's why I think hobbies are so important to people. Because it's a new It's a new thing to get excited about. It's a new thing to get you up in the morning.
So yeah, I guess you could just summarize that by saying my meaning of life is just human experience,
Yeah.
basically.
It's a boring
However,
answer, but it's a
yeah,
real answer, I would say.
right. I
Because
think that's about as close as I could get.
nobody wants to feel stagnant.
Mm-mm.
But there's not a lot of great ways for the average person to really express themselves other than maybe taking up a hobby. A lot of people don't have the time or the resources to find the people stuck at 9 to 5 jobs. That's the problem. People are stuck at their jobs behind desks, and
you know what? Demonizing a 9 to 5, I don't think is the right move here, because some people have 9 to 5s that they are totally okay with doing for the rest of their life. But usually in those instances, at their 9 to 5, they are never stopping progressing, whether it be their knowledge or discoveries, like freaking archaeology, for example. Like, yeah, there is never, at least for an extended period of time, stagnance. I think you need to have continuation and progression, even if it's a daily 9 to 5. And a lot of people's 9 to 5 is working for like a corporate company where you don't feel like you're actually doing or contributing to the progression of literally anything.
Right. Let me clarify what I was meaning there, because as somebody that also works a 9 to 5, let me further hone in on what I was talking about there. I think what I'm more talking about is the kind of person that is by society kind of pushed into that lifestyle whenever they maybe know that they are better suited for more, whether it be entrepreneurial or just strictly creative or what have you, kind of outlets. And they are kind of sucked out of those potentially life-altering situations that could really be of great benefit, and put into a situation that they otherwise feel a lack of motivation.
Right. Yeah. So and I'm also effectively also in a 9 to 5, and I can tell you right now, delivering packages for FedEx is a very unfulfilling thing. Like, you don't, there is no sense of I'm getting better as a person, I'm learning as a person, I'm helping somebody like get better, or I'm contributing to the discovery of something, or I'm basically just doing anything. It's very, I would say probably the same of yours too in sales. It's just not, there's not the fulfillment that you would hope from something for the rest of your life.
But I would say you try to make the most of it.
Absolutely. Because like I said, right now, one of the most fulfilling things that I feel is the acquisition of knowledge and information. And I'm using this unfulfilling time at my job to usually listen to books. So I would say I'm doing the best I can to utilize this time at my job.
Right.
For sure.
But I don't unfortunately have that luxury for the most part, but.
Right. Yeah. So meaning of life solved. Anyway, moving on. What other life altering, world changing questions can we just absolutely destroy right now?
Yeah, we are absolutely destroying these.
Yeah, we're plowing through them. Philosophers be damned. We've got this. We've got this on lock.
This one kind of ties into the last question. What is the biggest waste of human potential?
Oh man.
What is that question even asking? Is what I'm like, is it what detracts from human potential? What pulls humans away from their potential? Or is it just what potentials do people seek that are a waste? Because that, if it's the last one, then that's an inherently flawed question. Because how do you determine what is a wasteful potential?
I would, whether it means it or not, I would take it as the former.
Yeah.
But
what is the biggest detractor of or the biggest pull away of human potential?
doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling, 9 to 5 jobs potentially. That's one of the reasons why. That's one of the reasons why I had a hiccup just then. That's one of the reasons why I wish that the standard, at least for us, the standard American work week had fewer hours in it, or a fewer day, or something. Just give the individual person more time away from work. I don't mean make less money. I just mean that the standard American work week operates on tighter schedules. I think that would be a net positive for individuals.
I 100% am in agreement with the result of that argument for us, because I mean, if we were a result of that change, it's pretty clear we would just dedicate probably more to this.
Right.
But not everyone would. In fact, I would venture to say probably most would just attribute that extra time to more doom scrolling and other.
And also, here's another issue with what I just said. I think it takes out of account people that genuinely love their occupations.
Yeah, which I mean, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the majority. It's a lot of people.
And that's fantastic if they do. And I think that's great. But I don't know. I still feel like I wish the standard work week was shorter. I think 40 hours a week is just 40 hours a week when you consider that you have to spend at least or around, give or take, 8 hours a night sleeping. It's just
I think everybody is in agreement that 2/3 of your waking life is working. Probably is maybe not very cool.
Yeah. Well, that's how I would answer that question.
The biggest waste of human potential. I think, yeah, just whatever. Just, I guess, just wasting your life.
The biggest waste of human potential is what takes you away from your meaning.
Yeah,
that we just discussed.
So this is a subjective answer, again, because of subjective conditions.
Right.
But yeah, whatever your subjective condition, whatever the answer to that is, the biggest waste would be whatever is taking you away from that the most.
Right.
I think.
Accurate, I think.
Yeah. I've got a good one that you actually brought up before we started recording.
Hell yeah.
Are emotions a threat to intelligence or the result?
This one, I think, highly depends on how you feel about emotions.
Obviously, emotions, I would say 100% have the potential, in everybody, have the potential to be a threat to intelligence. Because there's nothing that can take you out of a common sense decision like being pissed off.
Right.
Or something like that. Or having just going through a breakup 5 minutes ago. Or something like that.
Yeah.
So there is no point to where your intelligence can trying to phrase this in a way that makes sense. Intelligence can never get so high that it can't be defeated by emotion. Now, I do think that intelligence can get so high that it beats emotion most of the time, or maybe even all of the time. But that doesn't mean that emotion can't outdo intelligence sometimes. But is emotion the result of intelligence?
No.
No, absolutely not.
I think
Yeah, I agree.
Now, here's one thing that I would say that I would maybe push back on is the drive to be intelligent can be a drive of emotion. or the drive to seek intelligence can be brought forth
I
by
mean,
a sense of emotion.
absolutely. You can want to be smart because you want to get more chicks. Like there's which is innately a a primal desire.
Now let me ask you this here. Now listen to me. I'm important. Now so listen.
Mm, self-declared.
What's that question I just had? Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why this is happening to me. I just ate maybe the biggest plate of nachos you've ever seen in your life. Like not maybe like an hour or two ago. And I just
brain fog. I tell you, I got a pizza. So Black Ops, we thought about talking about this, but we talk about games and stuff a lot. So just quickly, Black Ops 6 came out. It's been really a ton of fun.
Love it.
We both been really enjoying it. I bought Little Caesars yesterday because they're doing a double XP thing, and you can get like a skin, a calling card, an emblem, and like a charm if you get some double XP from Little Caesars. And I'll tell you, I got some yesterday. I ate the whole damn thing.
That's a bad way to do it.
That's a bad way to do it. But it just happens. It just happens. And we talked about this in the IQ episode. The brain fog is just overwhelming. You can't think coherently. You can't stay focused. It is crazy. It is crazy. Carbs, man.
Carbs are delicious, but also
delicious, specifically simple carbs. Because like I could pound up on oatmeal, and that doesn't happen. Complex carbs don't do that for some. I don't really know why that is, but
yeah.
Shoot, dude.
So to get back to what I was about to say, what is motivation? I think motivation has to come from something. Is it emotion driven? Always, by necessity.
Is motivation an emotion of itself?
Or driven by emotion?
You think motivation is always the result of a different emotion? Motivation is not an emotion on it.
I don't get paid to think. That was a question. I don't know the answer to that.
I would say motivation is an answer to my own question. I don't think motivation is an emotion because emotions, I think, can conjure up from thoughts.
Mm.
But I think the more I think about this, the less certain I am. Motivation is probably going to be driven by a prior emotion.
Right.
I don't think you can conjure up motivation by just thinking hard enough. I think you have to think about something, have an emotional reaction to those thoughts, and motivation will come from that.
Now. So, in order to do anything, you have to be motivated to do it. If you are a motivationless, devoid of motivation, let's say, you would not strive to do anything. So, in order to seek intelligence or drive for intelligence, you need motivation. But motivation is brought forth by emotion or a prior emotion. So is intelligence maybe direct or indirect result of some sort of emotion driving motivation? Now we're a couple layers deep.
Yeah, there's layers to this one. Well, I don't know on that one. Is rephrase? Say that again. Rephrased.
Now I gotta remember what I said.
Think of another way to ask that question. Maybe I can think of a better way to come at it.
If intelligence is achieved by your motivation or the product of motivation,
Right.
in a way. And motivation comes from emotion. Is intelligence an indirect result of emotion?
Of emotion. So this is the classic: if A plus B and B equals C, does A equal C?
Right.
Or sorry, I did plus. If A equals B and B equals C, does A equal C?
Yeah, if you add all that together, what do you get?
Yeah, that's what I meant to say there. I don't think so, because you can be born with varying levels of intelligence. Intelligence, we know, intelligence is not knowledge. Intelligence is simply well, I say simply, but there ain't nothing simple about intelligence. But intelligence is, as far as my understanding goes, intelligence is the ability to perform cognition in all ways that can be applied, which is not just the acquisition of knowledge.
But are we getting too deep in semantics by saying that? And are we getting off of the original intention of the question? I think say the question again before I say what I'm about to say.
So if emotion indirectly is because
the original question. The posed question.
Is intelligence, well, are emotions a threat to intelligence, which we kind of got through, or are emotions the result of intelligence?
Are we talking about intelligence in its basic form, or are we talking about the strive for further intelligence?
I think it's in its basic. I don't think this question has anything to do with the motivation of intelligence acquisition.
I think how I hear and read that question is, do emotions get in the way of learning? That's how I understand and interpret that question. Do emotions get in the way of pursuit of further knowledge?
For this is in question to, are emotions a threat to intelligence?
Yeah. And then what I'm trying to insinuate is that the second part of that question, is it a threat to it, or what? Or what? No, that was
the second part of it is, are emotions a result of intelligence?
Right. Yeah, that's what I meant. So what I'm trying to insinuate with the whole is the if this then and this then this is that because emotions drive motivation, and motivation is a strive for further intelligence in some aspects, it's an indirect cause.
Right.
But I think the original question, at least in my head, is for the first part, for the threat, do emotions get in the way of self-improvement when it comes to intelligence?
Well, like I was saying before, they certainly can. They have the potential to. And if you leave it as simple as that, then if emotions can be a threat to intelligence, then the answer to those questions would be yes. Emotions are a threat to intelligence, because if there was no emotion, there would be no threat to intelligence. But, like I was saying earlier, sometimes your intelligence can outweigh your emotions 99 or all of the time, which I would say we're humans. All of the time isn't really realistic. Emotions are going to outweigh your intelligence sometimes when it comes to decision making.
Right.
And specifically, if you're a particularly emotional person, I would say emotions have more of an influence on your decisions than intelligence does. I don't think we can make decisions based on pure intelligence and factual analysis with no emotion. I straight up don't even think that that's possible with humans.
I think there's a very basic answer to this question that we've been talking about for 20 minutes. Are you ready for the basic answer?
Yeah.
There are different kinds of emotions, and emotions display differently. And each emotion impacts the pursuit and the implications of intelligence differently. Motivation could be brought forth by emotions, and that obviously aids in the acquisition of intelligence. But anger and spitefulness and sadness detract at times in some aspects.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotions have the potential to, but they don't have to always.
So the answer to the question is that shouldn't be that is not an exclusive. It's not this or this. It's yes in some situations and no in others.
And what I would add to that is, I think emotions, not only do they have the potential to detract from intelligence in a decision making process, but I believe that they also have the potential to enhance intelligence in a decision making process. Emotional intelligence is a real thing.
Right.
And if you were making a decision about something that had some sort of emotional, dare I say, moral component to it, if you were making a decision that involved other people,
right,
sometimes a purely factual analysis of a decision that involves other people is not the right way to go about it. Sometimes you need to inject emotion into something like that.
That's true.
So,
and I would say, to go back to an earlier question, I think using emotions as a way of decision making a lot of the times comes from striving to create a better society. Yeah. I think if we were to just look at what's the best way objectively, factually, to create the most min-maxed society, we would just burn poor people.
That's the job description of a politician. Min-max the society.
Yeah. I mean, we would just throw away people that are not pulling their weight, because why would you keep them? They're trash, whatever.
Right.
But
and that from a purely intellectual, factual decision-making process, that is what would happen. But you need to inject emotion into that.
Right.
To enhance to enhance it, not just be a threat to it.
So we did it. So we solved society and emotion and intelligence.
And the meaning of life.
And the meaning of life.
We've solved it all.
Shit. I didn't know this episode was going to be that productive. Holy garbage.
We need to do that more often.
Exactly.
We need to we need to solve life's problems, answers to the universe, whatnot. But we're touching an hour now, but let's just do one more.
All right.
Let's end on a good one. Where is it? I lost it. Ha! Does free will really exist?
Well, that depends.
As they usually do.
I mean, it depends. It depends in the sense that what is free will? Who grants free will? Free will is, in essence, an idea that comes from religion, to my understanding, in most situations. And the reason I would come to that conclusion is because, well, if not free will, then what's restricting will? If will is not free, then what would be restricting will? And then, So this is a purely religious question, I would say. Let me go at this secularly first. The secular answer is yes, everyone has free will. Unless you're coming from the biological standpoint.
Yeah, I was gonna say an evolutionary biologist who often that group of people say there is no free will. Their argument for the lack of free will is basically our entire lives are set in motion from day one, and our what we perceive as free will and what we perceive as the ability to make decisions is simply what was actually always going to happen anyway, based on all the building blocks of your life that would lead up to why you would decide that. And
Yeah.
you don't actually really have the ability to decide anything different than what you would have decided or did decide. And that's the concept of the biological concept of not having free will, is we don't actually have the ability to break free from what we would biologically decide based on all of our previous, experiences and interpretations and emotions and whatnot.
I think that that's fair. I don't know if it's entirely accurate, in my opinion.
Well, here's another thing here's the common counter to that is the ability of consciousness.
Right.
Does that throw a wrench into that idea?
I mean, it would have to, I think. Because if you're conscious and the idea of consciousness is being aware of yourself, and I think part of consciousness is to make a decision. Now, I think a decision can be influenced, but just because something is influenced doesn't mean it's predetermined. That would be my argument.
But the counter argument to that is that the influence is so strong based on all your previous life experiences and biological predispositions.
I mean, listen, my biological instincts tell me that I should go get Taco Bell after this. And it's a really strong urge.
But and if you do it, there was never any other option.
Right. But what I'm saying is, no matter how strong that urge is, there's a chance that I'm not going to go do that.
But is there? But if you don't go do that, then there was never a chance that you were going to go get Taco Bell, because all of your life experiences and thoughts and interpretations and genetic predispositions up until that decision determined that you were never actually going to go get that Taco Bell.
See, I think that you could maybe make that argument if it's just like you have two options, but one of them is heavily, heavily favored in your opinion. But if it comes up to a coin toss, said nachos coming right back to me. If it comes up to a coin toss of kind of decision of, I don't know, maybe I'll just pick one, whatever. I don't think that's predetermined. I think that you are actively making a decision at that moment, and you are going with one or the other.
So maybe you are in support of the idea of free will existing, basically.
Yeah, I think genetics having an influence on somebody's behavior is undeniable. But I do not think that it's fair to classify that as lacking free will just because there is a strong pull. Even if it's an irresistible pull.
But that's the thing. The argument covers that. It's not just things that are so influenced that the pull is irresistible. It's that your life experiences and thoughts and genetic predispositions may have led you to this point of indecision on something, but even just a little tiny bit, all of your predispositions up to this point, you're going to make one of those decisions, and that was always going to happen. Even if it's just by a little slight margin. because of like if I'm trying to put this into an example. If you're going to go get Taco Bell or not, all of your predispositions up to this point may have gotten you to the point where it's such a close decision that if you farted and it made your stomach feel better, that is all the motivation, that is all the extra reinforcement you need to then decide and go and get that Taco Bell. It's not a close decision, or it is a close decision between one or the other that is swayed one or the other by a small factor, but that doesn't mean that everything leading up to this point didn't already know that that was the decision you were going to make because you farted. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm picking up what you're throwing down. I don't. There's an idea in, and we just talked about this before we started recording. There's an idea in Calvinism, which is essentially that everything is predetermined. This is the idea of predeterminism. And that you make decisions in life, but those decisions are predetermined. In this case, by a deity.
Right.
This argument of your biology playing into and the experiences built up, it just reminds me of that. Maybe that's a valid argument, but I'm very turned off to it because it just seems to me like we're just creating a way to dismiss the idea of free will. We just for whatever reason want to dismiss that idea, and we're creating a loophole to get around it.
I will say that even though the argument of no free will is, in my opinion, a pretty sound argument, it does seem kind of useless.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I remember because I had this very conversation. With somebody.
The point? Like, okay, maybe we don't have free will. Maybe every decision that we have made and are going to make was already determined. I wouldn't say predetermined, because predetermined assumes that something that can see into the future determined that for you, but it is already determined based on all biological predispositions.
Already determined is just another way of saying predetermined.
Yeah, I think that's true, but for the sake of clarity, predetermined still sounds more like a deity sees what you're going to do ahead of time, when that's not the case. There is nothing seeing into the future, knowing what we're going to do ahead of time, but the motion of what we're going to do is locked.
Right. So
to speak. So yeah, I guess they're the same word, but for clarification and separation's sake. So like as I was saying, even though it might already be determined, our futures, like, who cares? Like,
I think who cares, but also just the idea that everything's led up to this point and your genetics are a certain way and your decisions have formed a certain way. That doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't discount the idea of free will. It's just influence. I think everything is influenced. Just because something is influenced very strongly, that doesn't mean it's determined to be a certain way. It just means that we're going to be a little heavy on one side as opposed to the other. It's still a decision. Maybe it's irresistible, but I don't think that makes it determined.
Yeah, see, I don't agree with that argument. I think the idea of influence implies that there is another option, which it does. And I think using the word influence is just simply not correct in this argument of lacking free will, because I don't think it's influence. I think it's
Isn't that exactly what
genetic
it is, though?
predisposition.
It's a disposition. That's you are predisposed to it. I could be predisposed to having a heart attack. Doesn't mean I'm going to. My biology would, in this hypothetical situation, is influenced to have a heart attack. If my biology,
it's a certain predisposition.
I think we're talking about something that I don't personally feel exists. The idea that you were always going to make this decision because of biology. I mean, if we're talking like whether or not I'm going to piss my pants, I mean, no, that's a biological function. That's if I don't get to a bathroom, I got to piss my pants. But like, if we're talking whether or not I'm going to Taco Bell, I don't, because it's a cop-out answer, right? Because it's just like, oh, well, I can make the decision whether or not to go. If you don't decide to go, you were never going to. Now you just don't want to admit that free will exists. Or maybe it's not that you don't want to admit it, but it's you don't feel it exists, and therefore you're going to make an answer that excludes it. If it's a decision you were never going to. It's like the idea, to bring it back to religion, it's my favorite topic, guys. It's like when people say, when there's, like, it's like I said, there's an idea, another idea, a separate idea in Calvinism that is unconditional election. If God decides you are going to be a Christian, you are a Christian, right? So somebody could live their entire life and they're making decisions as a Christian and they're doing all these things. And then let's say in the last couple of years of their life, they denounce whatever, Christianity. They're done with it. And then people will say, well, so they left the church. They were a Christian, now they're not. But what happened? How does that jive with it? And then the Christians say, well, if they left it, then they were never a Christian to begin with. Discounting.
Right. And I always hated when Christians would, even when I was still a part of the Christian faith, I really disliked it when other Christians found it so insanely easy to just dismiss people that leave the faith as never actually having had the faith.
I find that argument very similar when it's a decision like, am I going to go to Taco Bell? And I go, well, maybe I won't.
Very similar things here.
Yeah. And then somebody were to say, well, if you were never going to go to Taco Bell, then you were never going to ever. Or if you decide not to, then you were never going to. Or if you decide that you were always going to. Taking out the decision whatsoever. Taking out the free will whatsoever. It's just, oh yeah, no. That decision that you made, you were never going to.
But I still, listen, I agree. And to be honest, I don't know where I stand on this. I do believe consciousness is our ability to perceive ourselves in time and space does have an influence on this. But I also am strongly convinced by the idea that the decisions we make are 100% certainly influenced. And I say influenced in the certain type of way, as in there is no other option. I would say 100% disposition. I'm also, I am persuaded by the argument of that our decisions are 100% affected and made based on our genetics and experiences and whatnot. And there was no other option of what we were going to decide. That is convincing to me. But like I said, I also believe consciousness throws a wrench in that. So I don't know where I stand on that.
I think it's both. I think your genetics and your experience lead you to a point where you're going to feel one way or the other, or make a decision one way or the other. It's up to you as an individual to tip the scales back to whichever way you want to go.
I don't, which is you not, that is saying it's not both. That is saying free will is a thing. I don't think it can be both.
What I meant when I said both is, I think the first part of the argument that genetics and experience lead you up to a point. That's what I was saying exists.
Which, yeah, I don't think anybody disputes that. I think everybody thinks that that's true. It's just the non-free willers just take that a little bit further, all the way up until the decision-making process.
Right.
Not just close to the decision-making process enough to apply influence, but not determine.
Now, if you were to ask me, let's say you're going to do something that, and you're not going to make a decision about it. You're just going through life doing things. Is that a direct result of your past experiences in genetics? Absolutely. Because how I guide my actions when I'm not actively in a decision-making process.
I was just say, if you're doing things unconsciously, yeah, I would say 100%.
But if
Once consciousness is removed from the equation, I 100% think you are not operating on free will.
But if I stop at a decision point, a fork in the road, and I say, let me deliberate on this. I want to come to a conclusion on this. And I sort this out, and I take my genetics and my wants and my desires and how my mind might push me into it. I believe that I could still make the opposite decision.
So that once something enters your decision-making process, that is where you think that the genetics and influence stops, and it stops at influence and doesn't continue to determination. It just becomes an influence over your decision rather than a determiner of your decision.
I think it's a scale, one of those. It's a scale.
I think the influence can go up or down as
I think your genetics and your experience tip the scales heavily one way. It's up to you and your free will to tip it back the other way, or go with the decision that you maybe naturally would be inclined to. I want to go out every single day and spend $30 a day on food because I'm too lazy to cook. But I know that that's terrible for my financial situation. So I make the decision not to. And then I still go to Taco Bell, to disprove Taco.
So what we're saying is Taco Bell is not part of free will. That was always in the cards.
Now, everything except for Taco Bell is free will. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I would say the same with me and Little Caesars. So I think, what would be really interesting is if we had subscribers and listeners.
That would be interesting for a lot of reasons.
That would be interesting for a lot of reasons, and I would ask them some questions. But what I would want to do is use them to enact influence over someone that has done research on this free will topic and be able to talk to them about it and get their stance and opinions. Because I believe this would be deeply interesting to get the opinion of somebody smart.
Yeah. Because that's not us.
No. And see what they think.
Right.
But, maybe they would do it out of the kindness of their heart, but we would have more influence if we had the pull of subscribers.
That's true.
Maybe we should look into that. Maybe we should try and get someone into the realm of philosophy and the decision-making and free will process and talk to them. I really want to introduce the idea of guests. I think that would be great.
That would be great. It's difficult with
our current, that's why I said it would be nice to have viewers.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a long last one, but we're ending at just the right time. So if you're listening and watching up to this point, we appreciate it. like the damn video.
Yeah, motherfuckers.
Share the damn video.
God darn.
Comment on the damn video.
Let me hear you say it.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.